Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 751B, and today's date is August 27th, 2015, and the title of this episode is, As the Collapse Approaches, the U.S. Government Pushes the Gun Control Agenda. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. We see right now, since we are headed towards this collapse, what are we seeing? We are seeing them go after the guns. Why? Because they know. A population that is unprotected is easy to control. And the hour is late. We saw the Virginia shooting. We saw Bryce Williams, which is really Vester Lee Flanagan, that was his name as a news reporter, basically opened fired on a cameraman and a news reporter. And of course, it's coming out that he had a 23-page fax that he sent off describing everything. I mean, first of all, why would he use a fax machine? That doesn't make sense whatsoever. But when you look at the video of this whole thing, it seems very odd. I mean, he was ranting and raving, that he suffered racial discrimination. He had other instances with his other jobs. It seems like this person was mentally disturbed. He might even been on SSRIs. And most likely he was. And we can see right now, it's not the weapon that caused... It's almost like saying, it's the car that caused the accident. No, it was the drunk driver, the person who was drinking that got into a car, that drove the car, that hit 22 people. Or hit a bus of children. But people don't say ban the cars. This man, if you took away the weapon of the gun, he would have used a knife or an axe. But you know something? When you hear these stories, you never hear them say, or the corporate media tries to stay away from those reports of people wielding knives or axes. They don't like to report on them if they kill a lot of people because it kind of messes up on their gun control agenda. But we see right now the government is out there pushing the gun agenda. Their main agenda right now is to infringe on the Second Amendment and take the weapons away from the people. But there's a lot of discrepancies in this entire story. When you look at the video, you see him approach the cameraman, which is facing away. You see the news reporter and the person she was interviewing. Now, that person didn't even glance over once. Now, normally, when you see something, you just move your head a little bit, not even a little bit. Then you see from the viewpoint of the gunman, he points his gun at the reporter and shoots many times. Now, this is point blank range. The reporter didn't grab her stomach or any other part, but ran. And as the cameraman was falling, the camera was still filming. She was still running, and he put a couple of shots into her. And then as the camera fell, it was still recording as it fell, and then it just faded out to black. First of all, how did it fade off to black? So regardless of this being a false flag or not, it doesn't matter at this point because we are at the end game and they notice. And this is why we're continually seeing more and more of these events occurring. I mean, we just had one out of MSU. There was a shooter. This is Mississippi State University in Starksville. And the university issued a maroon alert. And it looks like there were two shooters. You notice how there's always two shooters? One was apprehended. The other one they were searching for. But everything was on lockdown. No one was killed or injured. They stopped it before it happened. But we see that this is continually happening. Now Walmart is saying that they're going to stop selling the weapons used in the mass shootings. They're going to get rid of the assault rifles, semi-automatic shotguns, and other weapons. And this is exactly what the White House, the Obama administration, the central bankers want. Because a population that doesn't have protection against a tyrannical government is very easy to control. I mean, you can go back in time to Stalin, Hitler, and all the rest, and you can see that they took the weapons away from the people, and they went ahead And they killed millions because it's a lot easier to do that. And of course, our spokesman from the United States, Josh Earnest, is out there saying that this is another example of gun violence that is becoming all too common in communities large and small across the United States. He said there are common sense steps that Congress can take right now without infringing on the Second Amendment. Well, I hate to say this, but everything they do is infringing on the Second Amendment. Everything they do that has to do with the freedom of speech infringes on the freedom of speech. So they're going to infringe upon it no matter what. And they're going to try to push gun legislation to try to take the weapons away from the people. That is their main goal at this point. Now, out in North Dakota, it is legal for law enforcement to fly drones. Now, if you notice, the U.S. government is trying to ban drones for personal use because what they're nervous about is when this whole thing starts crashing down, those people with drones are going to use them. So they're trying to make it a law where everyone is not allowed to use them, or there's limits on how you can use them, because those people with drones with cameras on it, or those people who are fitting the drones with weapons, that's going to cause a problem. But in North Dakota, they can actually put less than lethal weapons. I'm going to call them lethal weapons. They can put tasers on it, tear gas, rubber bullets. They can do all of these things because of House Bill 1328. Wasn't drafted that way, but when lobbyists representing law enforcement that were tight with the drone industry, they got their hands on it. The bill's stated intent was to require police to obtain a search warrant from a judge in order to use the drone to search for criminal evidence. In fact, the original draft from Representative Rick Becker's bill would have banned all weapons on police drones. Then Bruce Burkett of North Dakota Peace Officers Association was allowed by the State House Committee to amend the bill and put a limit on what type of weapons. And it's going to be, like I said, rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas, sound cannons, tasers, all allowed on the drones. The step before the actual weapons are going to go on them. Because this is what always happens. It always starts off small where, they can use it for investigations. We're just going to mount cameras on it. Remember when they said all that? Well, now we're just going to have taser guns and tear gas and sound cannons. And we're going to be able to use rubber bullets on the drones. The next step, we'll just be able to take those right off and put the actual lethal weapons right on. So slowly but surely, they are doing it. Now, out in Sudan, it looks like the president there was forced to sign the peace agreement. It was threatened by UN action. And we're going to have to watch that situation in Sudan because I don't think it's going to hold. I think things are going to get worse as time goes on because we can see this world is getting ready for World War III. We see that Ukraine just got a debt write-off. What? Wait a minute. They told Greece, absolutely not. No debt write-off whatsoever. Ukraine just got a debt write-off. Russia wants their $3 billion that they invested in their Eurobonds, and they want it in December. And Yatsenyuk is out there saying, listen, whatever we did, it's going to apply to Russia. So they've written off 20% of the debt right now because they know this cannot be sustained. But they allowed this within Kiev, in Ukraine, but not in Greece. Double standards right now. Because we know they're not finished in Ukraine. We know they need the southeastern area and Crimea because that's where all the good stuff is in the country. We see the Ukraine separatists, they're going to strive for another ceasefire September 1st, the first week of school. So they're saying, you know something, let's just have a ceasefire. Kids are going back to school. We'll have to see how this plays out because I wouldn't be surprised if Kiev, and you have to remember, they're backed by the United States government, and they do things to really make it look like the other side caused it. And this might be the perfect opportunity for children going back to school. They might try to do something with some type of false flag event. Washington says they're not going to be involved in any of the Ukraine peace talks, but they will be involved in the Transnistria dispute. John Kerry was out there saying, Washington is committed to be fully engaged in the talks because they want that area. They already have Kiev, so they feel they already have the country. When they don't have something, that's when they want to be involved. That's when they get involved. That's when they try to show that people are down. And we can see already, the United States is already stepping into this situation. And we know why. It's the same thing that we've seen in all the other countries. We see Kiev right now is deploying Buk missile system, 4,000 troops on the front line. It's continually happening because they are getting ready for an offensive. They're preparing slowly but surely. We see that France paid back Russia 900 million euros for the 2 Mistral helicopter carriers because they canceled it because of what was happening in Ukraine. And it took all this time, and they still owe more money. We see Susan Rice is flying out to China. She's going to meet with the president there. They'll exchange views on bilateral ties and other major issues of both concern, talking about how this economy is coming down, how war is going to start if you don't do what we say. And also the president of China is visiting the United States in September. We see the U.S. plans more drills in the Asia-Pacific area to provoke China. So more drills are coming from the United States, and China says, okay, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to hold drills in that area. And the United States is going to be working with all the surrounding islands in that area because they are getting ready and prepared. Like Obama says, they have contained China in the Pacific. The U.S. has no plans right now to change its policies towards Russia. They're going to keep on going with sanctions and everything else. We understand the peace plan with the nuclear deal in Iran is going forward. We see many countries in Iran right now making deals, especially Russia, China. The United States, not so much yet. They're trying to derail this because, remember, our government is controlled by all different entities, foreign governments like Israel, that controls the Congress. We have the central bank corporations that control the Obama administration. And they realize, like John Kerry has said, this is the end game. They need the dollar on the oil in Iran or this system is done. They need to prop it up longer and longer. And the IAEA has confirmed Iran's in compliance with its commitments. They're fine. There's no nuclear weapons. There never was. This has nothing to do with nuclear weapons in Iran. This has to do with central bank, the dollar, and oil. That's pretty much it. And how this system is collapsing and how they need to prop it up. The Saudi troops have entered Yemen. Troops have now reported entering in the northern part of Yemen right now. Yemeni armed forces, the Houthis, attacked Saudi Arabia, hit many of their areas, and they said enough is enough. They're not supposed to be attacking us, so they're marching into Yemen. We see that Saudi Arabia once again is calling for Assad to step down. And we know, because we reported on this many, many times, the Islamic State has gained territory in Syria. Now, if you listen to the corporate media, they keep saying the Islamic State is losing. They're losing territory. The U.S. is, winning with their bombings. But we knew all this was fake We knew the Islamic State is a proxy army. Why would they hit their own proxy army? Makes no sense. And this is why we saw an expansion of the Islamic State. Well, all of a sudden, the Pentagon is investigating whether officials have improperly rewritten assessments to give a more optimistic view of the campaign in Iraq and Syria. In fact, the Islamic State is not losing. This was manipulated to convince everyone, and now they are found out. Unnamed government officials detailed the claim to the Times that this was happening. It's amazing how all of this comes out, and it shows that everything that we've been talking about is absolutely right on track. That the government, the corporate media, all lying, manipulating everything. Now, if they lied about this, they lied about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, they lied about Iran's nuclear weapons. I mean, if we go back in time, they lied about pretty much everything. At this point, why wouldn't you think that they're lying about the economy collapsing? I mean, just think about it. They haven't told us the truth about anything. It's all been lies. Now, U.S. and Turkey, they are getting ready to go into Syria. Now, the U.S. keeps saying we're not setting up a no-fly zone, we're not setting up a buffer zone, but they will agree that it's an ISIS-free zone, which is the same thing. They're clearing the way, and they're not clearing the Islamic State. They're clearing a path so they can say this is a free zone. It's not part of Syria. We can bring troops into this area. That's all they're doing. It's basically they're just playing with words, trying to make everyone believe that's not what they're really doing, but we know what they're doing. They're setting up these free zones. Jordan is about to set up a free zone, and they're going to say it's not part of Syria, so we can bring troops into this area. This is what they're planning because they're getting ready to go after Assad. Time is running out. They need to prop up the system. The petrodollar is dying in the Middle East. It's getting worse in all of these countries. And the only way to maintain this entire system is to continually go into more and more countries and put them on the dollar for their natural resources. But I think they're losing ground right now. I think they're losing control, and they know it. This is why they're coming after the guns. This is why they're telling us that the economy is improving. GDP's at 3.7%. They're going all out right now before it happens. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.